So, thank you for being here at 8:30 in the morning. We're happy to be here to talk to you about the partnership between Siena College Research Institute and CloudResearch. So, in the spirit of AAPOR, it's all about a collaboration. It's all about learning best practices and finding ways for us to enhance the science of survey research. And I want to just briefly mention the happenstance occurrence of how actually we met Cloud Research and Lade specifically. He came to college. He came to Siena College. He came to campus. He's one of our psychology department speakers for one of their campus events. So just at happenstance, he came to campus. It came on our radar. We said we should meet with him and have some lunch. And from there, a lot of amazing things have happened. So I'm hoping to encourage you all to visit each other's sites so we can enhance survey research. So essentially what we're going to share with you is how Cloud Research used their Engage platform next to how Siena College uses their telephone research approach. So if you don't know much about Siena College, we're, especially in the political space, we work with the New York Times. We use 100% telephone data collection, and we have a likely voter probability method based on using the voter file. So we are really excited to try to learn more about how we can enhance our method or what are the gaps of the tools that we use. And that's the magic of quantitative research, empirical research. We collect large samples so that they're generalizable. We want to be able to say, the nation, as a snapshot in time, has this perspective on the candidate. They believe this issue is most important. But that's the issue with quantitative research. It does a great job at telling you who's ahead on the horse race. It does a great job at telling you there's variation among subgroups. It does a great job at telling you there was change over time. But we really struggle to know, why did voters tell us that? Especially when you think about, well, they can hold conflicting opinions. Many times they say, I think it's important for us to secure the border, but we also need to have a pathway to citizenship. Where's the in between there? When you look at the crosstabs, it's quite confusing. You also have the issue that people can change their minds and are influenced by a variety of things that go well beyond a fixed choice scale. And we know there's, challenges with anchoring people or framing effects. So given quantitative opportunities, a chance to be enhanced by qualitative data is really the magic here. And then lastly, it's the people who we don't know anything about, the undecided, the persuadables, who won't tell us they're going to vote for. Let's learn more about what they're wrestling with. And again, yes, these issues are important to them, but what is the thing that is holding them back from saying, I'm ready to commit to a certain candidate? So that's what we saw with the third-party voters, and that's what actually was the initial start of this exploration. But that's the magic of what Engage to do for us, or helped us do for that, where we can actually do a parallel experiment. They conducted their methodology, we conduct our methodology, and we found a lot about the what, but they're able to tell us a little bit about the why. And the magic of that is Engage is an AI powered platform. Not only do you have the analytical side of the tools, but you have the engagement side. So it has both quantitative and qualitative questions, and it gives people a chance not only to type in with their keyboard, but also use a voice-to-text experience, what we really think as the human experience in conversations, what feels more natural than selecting a fixed choice response. And the magic is you can do this in parallel. There's no, it's very scalable. You don't have to worry about capacity issues, so it's quite exciting. So last thing I just want to mention is we actually stayed with this partnership across the whole summer and fall. So we started by looking at the double haters, the folks who didn't have a positive opinion of both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And then when Vice President Harris entered the race, we were really exploring this persuadable voter, how that changed. And then the debates, as we just heard, was such an interest in, experience. I did not think we'd be talking about cats and dogs either, but it was a wonderful time. And that's, again, what we're going to talk about is what you can learn by interviewing people, the same people before and after the debate, and get a lot of insights there. So now I'm going to pass it over to Aleb, who's going to be able to tell us all about the Engage platform.
Great. Great. Thanks, Travis. Yeah, so I'll talk about the study that we did. This is the last study that we did together, which looked at the debate. And yeah, we didn't know that you were looking at that as well, but I think this is just a way to kind of provide some additional information about that. And what we did in that study was we surveyed 937 people, almost 1,000 people, before the debate and immediately after the debate. So the pre-debate interview was 2-3 hours beforehand, and then right afterwards we interviewed the same people again. And these were 50 to 20-minute surveys where it was a combination of closed-ended questions and then open-ended follow-ups. And the open-ended follow-ups were done using the AI interviewer. Um, okay, so there were about 30 questions, closed-ended questions, and a series of follow-ups. But the one that I'm going to focus on today was just this very simple question: Who won the debate? And the response options were, well, Harris, Trump, tie, or not sure. So this uh, quantitative component is the one that I'll talk about first. And this right here is the sort of the novel aspect, right? That's where the AI interviewer comes in. So first, I'll just very briefly tell you about the quantitative uh, part of the study, but just so you can kind of see, this is the type of data that we get, right? So these are the interviews that are transcribed. As you can see, there's a series of closed-ended responses and open-ended questions. So every single participant, right, gives us qualitative data and quantitative data. So what did we find? So from these 1,000 people, people who told us before the debate that they are going to vote for Harris, the vast majority of them, 90%, thought that she won the debate. So that's kind of not surprising. What was surprising is that the people who beforehand told us that they're going to vote for Trump, only 50% of them thought that she won the debate. So it was a very clear outcome, right? Even people who were Trump supporters, did not think that he did very well. Interestingly enough, it made absolutely no difference in terms of who they who they were gonna vote for. So both the Trump and the Harris supporters basically after the debate said we're just gonna vote for the same person who we were going to in the first place. However, it was these undecided voters that Travis was talking about. They really thought that Harris won the debate, and among these people there was a slight but about a 10% shift toward Harris after the debate. So even among the undecided voters, even though they overwhelmingly thought that she did much better, it it impacted them relatively little, but it did impact them. So the question that we have is, we're going to come back. That's the what, right? The quantitative data. Now, the why. What was it about the performance of Harris and the performance of Trump that really impacted them, right? To think that um, she did better or that Trump did better. Okay, and so here, let me just take you through this this setup. Again, this is the we'll call this the anchor question, right? Everybody gets this closed-ended question: Who won the debate? At that point, uh, there is an interview guide here that you can think of it as an interview guide that he would give to a human interviewer. But instead of giving it to a human interviewer, right, we give it to the AI interviewer. And the interview guide says, okay, follow up to try to get participants to explain why they think Harris or Trump won or why it was a tie, and try to get a full picture of participants' opinions about who won, probe for specific examples or evidence they've seen that has led them to believe what they do, right? Listen and probe on language or phrasing, emotional tone, their thoughts and feelings, and so forth. So he did this um, instructional guide can be as long as we needed to. And this is ultimately what led the conversations. I'll give you some examples of the conversations in a minute, but I want to jump straight to the results. When we do the data analysis, and you could think about having um, 1,000 open-ended interviews, right? That's tens of thousands of pages of text, right? And what we have to do is we have to extract the meaningful information, and specifically what we're interested in is the question of why, right? Why do they think Trump did better? Why do they think Harris did better? And so this is the query that we put into the AI system, right? We're saying, why do people think, what did people think were the weak points of Trump's performance? List all the strong points of Trump's performance, right? So what the system does, it literally cycles through all 1,000 interviews. It pulls out all the relevant quotes for that specific query, right? And organizes them into a list of reasons that people thought Trump's performance was weak. And then this is something that's kind of important that I'll talk about in a second. With this asks the system to automatically generate tags based on the theme report, and a tag is literally every single participant is tagged with a specific category, and then that could be quantified. And that's kind of the really important part of it that I will talk about in a second. Okay, so all right, well, what do people think were the weak points of Trump's performance? Let's take a look at what we found here. So these are the top 7 reasons, and the first one in the list here is incoherency and lack of clear plans. I'm not going to read through all of this just for interest of time, but I'll just read through one so you get a sense of the kind of description that you have from the AI, right? So many participants felt that Trump failed to articulate clear policy plans, instead relying on broad, unconvincing statements. He often deflected questions and did not provide detailed answers to issues such as healthcare or border control. Other main reasons here were emotional, disorganized responses, divisive and offensive remarks, reliance on personal attacks, avoidance of key issues, reactionary nature, and lack of presidential demeanor. Okay, these were the reasons that people thought Trump's performance was weak. And of course, we also did the same thing for Harris, right? What did people think were the weak points of Harris's performance? And for her, the top 7 reasons were lack of substantive responses, perceived insincerity and authenticity. Don't just read this to you, but several participants described Harris's demeanor as insincere, rehearsed, or contrived. This perception of inauthenticity was exacerbated by what some described as scripted responses that failed to convey a sense of genuine engagement in the debate topics. Just to give you a sense of what one of these reasons are. Going down the list, emphasis on attacking the opponent, communication and presentation issues, failure to address key issues, perception of dishonest and public perception, and leadership ability. So these are some of the reasons. But you may notice that going back to Trump's description, for incoherency and lack of clear focus, right? The description is many participants felt that Trump failed to articulate clear policy plans. And the immediate question is, well, how many, right? And that's where the next step point comes in, right? So what we're able to do is we're able to quantify each of these responses uh, and essentially create a distribution where we can see which of them was the most important, or at least the most frequent reason that people provided, right? And so this says that avoidance of key issues was noted by almost 60% of people as a weak point to Trump, and failure to address the issues was also about 60% for Harris. And this is actually the same thing, interestingly enough, right? The avoidance of key issues and failure to address key issues. So you can see these are the top reasons that were provided by the same people, the same undecided voters for everybody. Okay, well, when the system counts the frequency with which each of these categories appears in a data set of 1,000 people, what it does is it literally goes through each person's interview and it creates a tag. It tags the person with very incoherency and lack of clear plans, right? And it also provides a reason why it tagged it. So this way it becomes not a black box, but you could actually examine whether the AI is making a reasonable response. And you can do all kinds of validation, reliability, and validity analysis where people go through this and we can rate whether people overall find this to be valid or not, right? And here, this is just an example of one of the interviews, right? So this is someone who did like Trump's performance. He said like he had a horrible debate and it was tough to watch. He was constantly going off topic and trying to bring up irrelevant points, and some of what he said was pretty crazy. This is the AI following up where it says, oh, that's an interesting perspective. Can you elaborate a bit on what about the debate led you to be less interested in voting for Trump? In other words, it keeps trying to get at the why. Like it follows interests so that you can really understand uh, each reason. Now, when each person gets this tag, it actually becomes something that we can analyze quantitatively. And this is something that we're really excited about, because what this next analysis that I'm going to tell you about allows us to do is that it allows us to take the qualitative interviews and use them not only in a qualitative way, like here are some great quotes, here are some great frequencies in terms of how many people said what, but it allows us to take the qualitative data and to bring it back into the quantitative data side and to use the qualitative data as a quantitative input for the discovery of causal mechanisms. So what we do is we take this tag, we go through each one of the 1,000 people, right? And the system literally, when you download the data file, you have all of the quantitative uh, variables, right? And each one of these themes, like reliance on personal attacks, becomes a variable, right? So a one here is someone who mentioned that reliance on personal attacks was important to them, right? And a zero means that they didn't mention it. Now, once we have these data in our quantitative data set, what we're able to do is we're able to actually conduct mediation analyses. We're able to conduct regressions. Here, I'll just give you one example. Um, when we put all of these themes into a regression equation, what we find is that some of them are actually not. For example, reliance on personal attacks was not a significant predictor of whether people thought Harris won the debate. But incoherency and lack of a clear plan and lack of presidential demeanor, these were highly significant. And so this allows us to circle back and say that we're not only getting at the what, but we're getting at the why. And we're not only getting at the why by looking at by using a traditional qualitative approach, right? But we're taking the qualitative data and we are using it at scale to do quantitative data analysis, right? That allows us to answer the why in this true mixed methods fashion. And so overall, what this analysis and approach allows us to do is to take qualitative data collection at scale. So instead of collecting data with 20 or 30 people or 50 people as done traditionally in qualitative research, we can do this at scale. In an hour or two, we can collect data with 1,000 people, and these are in-depth interviews, very in-depth, long conversations, and then we can extract the themes from the qualitative data and quantify them. And this way, we have true mixed methods approach with potentially larger representative samples. This allows us to do statistical modeling of qualitative data, which up until this point is simply there is no methodology that exists for doing that. So this is a really, I think, a fascinating discovery engine where we could essentially apply to anything. Like, why do people like a particular product? You have a conversation with them, you come up with a list of potential causal mechanisms, put it back into the data set, you see whether it actually predicts things in a statistically significant way, right? And so we're able to use this methodology to discover causes through bottom-up qualitative exploration combined with statistical modeling. And we were also very interested in this Washington Post study, and I actually had it here for some bit dimension. So it was great to actually see you coming, giving this all over for us. And yeah, thank you very much.